Hello and welcome to a very special video. Today we're going to talk about Vallejo Express color, namely a new one I got, but I wanted to talk about the Bag of Bones and the Wasteland Brown real quick on this model I've already painted. So we're going to go ahead and pull them a little closer, and I'll point out that the Bag of Bone was used on the Purity strip there, and the Wasteland Brown on the little side pack here and here, along with this parchment as well, as I try to get it in focus, was by Bag of Bones. It did such a good job that I thought, hey, let's go ahead and try their Serif Red, which is intense, on a few of the things I'd normally use Flesh Terrors Red. Now, I was given the Flesh Terrors Red before I get called out or whatever random crap people want to say, but I like to use contrast colors often as a base coat. So let's just see. We don't have to be perfectly good here. We're going to put it on a little thick, so of course, always caution yourself. Why do I do it this way? Well, I've always found red a bit of a fap to base coat. So, in general, what I would do is take something, base it real quickly. We're going to try to be very careful there. Hopefully I got that in shot. Effectively just take something, do a base coat, and then come in with the normal paint to do the finalization of the color, if you know what I mean. We'll go ahead and get the little grip as well. Let's go ahead and flip them around. Remember, if you're new to painting, it's a lot easier to move the model than to move your brush into really hard to get areas. Now, this does have a pretty good flow in my experience, but it can be a little tricky. Cleanup is probably always an advisable thing. You know, never be too precious. You can always clean up the paint, and if you have to, you can always come back in and, let's go ahead and hit that up, and we'll strip them and try again. Now, that's not too terrible. I actually kind of like the way the red is. Let's make sure we got that. We're going to be painting that black and then metallic later, so let's not worry too much. And then let's hit up this cloth here. So we're going to get some more of this, and we're just going to heap it on. Now, how do I do it? I'm using this as a base color before I do a normal color in whatever red am I choosing. I usually use Vallejo's flat red because I like the red that it gives me, but generally I like the base coat with something a little darker, and I find that Flesh Terrors Red was a good choice for that. Of course, always work in sections, and remember, I immediately dot that. I'll clean it up later. You can always move the model to get where you need. You don't have to move yourself or the brush. Remember, you can just glide her on in there and you're fine. And of course, we're going to not be super precious with any of it. So I'll come back and we'll talk about this once it's dry. Alright everybody, so this is with them mostly dried up, and this is what we're looking at. In effect, it's a little blotchy, but I'm not using this. If you're using it like I am as a base coat, then this is not a problem. It's a perfectly fine base color, and I think it looks pretty good. Now, I wasn't as careful as if I was going to make this a single coat thing. Let's go ahead and bring it back. But the front surcoat here got 2 coats of the color, so it kind of smoothed it out a bit, as you would expect. And this is pretty much one solid coat in the back. Now, here's the thing about this, is that I undercoated this with Cadre Gray. That was the undercoat here. over a very light grayish primer. And of course, this is the Serif Red Intense 72479. And this is just it over there. So what I'm going to do, just to show you guys a little bit more before we get to my opinions on it, is I'm going to use this Wasteland Brown, and I'm going to use it on the gun strap of this model. And that's real simple. I've already used this. It's already been agitated. We're just going to take a couple drops. And it needs a little bit more shaking than that. Sometimes you will get deceived. That's all I'm going to say. We'll throw that in there. I'm going to take a smaller brush. I'm just going to use the end of this to make sure this is completely mixed. If you want to save your brushes, this is a really good way to do that, and it's a lot easier to wash the back of that. So we're going to go ahead and just load that up, and we're going to grab him, get him in frame, and we're going to just go ahead and just put that on there, and it's still too light. Well, I'll do an appropriate mix, but you could see, you could get a very light, kind of tannish look out of that. And we'll come back after we get that handled. All right, everybody. So this is with the the sling covered. Now, you'll notice it has a little bit of a gradient, but that's because I pulled it down a little bit. So you have a little bit of work time, but it will start drying fairly quick. Now, one thing I've noticed about the finish, depending on your style, is there's a slight sheen to it, if I can get the light to bounce off, but it's mostly muted. I don't mind it. It's not a bad little satin, kind of mute satin finish, but it might bother you. But if you're planning on not using this as your full color, it's not going to be a problem. Plus, you can just hit it with a matte. So, what do I think about the paints overall? They control, in my experience, a great deal like contrast. So if you have experience with them, they're going to be very similar. They require about the same amount of shaking, if not a little bit more. They do come in these dropper bottles, which are sealed. You have to break the seal so you know if it's been used or not. And they are pretty good. I've had a pretty decent experience with them, and if you're looking for something that's not just another GW product with an absurd price, but something fairly close, this is not a bad one to go with. I think, in general, that it covers well enough, but you need to know that you like contrast, you need to put it on somewhat thick. The thinner you put it on, the less coverage you can get, the more kind of molting kind of look you're going to get. You might want that. You might want to put it on thin. Sometimes you can use it as a shade for other things. But overall, I think it performs quite a bit like contrast. It looks pretty good. And if you're going to use it for base coating, especially for obnoxious colors like red, or you just want an easy solution like for leather, like I would suggest, if you want to do something for leather and you want to do something fairly easy that'll look decent, Wasteland Brown 72420 is a good option. Overall, I think they're really good, and it was a happy accident of, well, slamming paint across myself by accident. But overall, I think it's a really nice looking paint. You can see there's a little bit that has to be cleaned up, but overall, it's very good. So if you're looking for something contrast-like, I think Vallejo's Xpress colors are a good option. The color range is getting better, especially with their Phase 2, which I believe this is one of the Phase 2 ones. And they have a pretty decent amount of them. But hey, it always comes down to what works for you, what you like the most, and what you find is the nicest to work with. So hopefully that helps some people. And hey, well, we're just doing things. You guys have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.